Poseidon from 2006 is a remake of classic 70s film The Poseidon Adventure. The basic premise of a capsized ship remains, while characters are vastly different from the original. In fact, the original film was the first disaster movie we ever reviewed, so I guess it's time to return to the sea. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
You don't just get the name Lucky Larry, you gotta be lucky.
I don't remember that at all, but welcome to the
He's
show.
from the standout character. What are you talking about?
Welcome to the show. This is a movie podcast. We are working through disaster movie season, and today we're looking at Poseidon, which is a remake of the Poseidon Adventure, which we did all the way back in our very first, in fact, was it our very first disaster movie episode? I think it was. It was the first episode of that first season.
I went back to watch that review just to try to get a little refresher, and we spent like 15 minutes breaking down 70 disasters and how many seasons we'd be doing and all that.
We did? We were that ambitious right from the get-go?
I guess. Seems like it. That or we just didn't shut up.
Well, here we are, or like several seasons later. We're at the remake of Poseidon Adventure. This came out in 2006, and much like the original, it's about a ship that capsizes, and a group of survivors are moving through the ship to try and survive. It really is. It's just that simple. There's not much more to it. We'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show, please do hit the like button on YouTube. It helps out a bunch, or you can give us 5 stars in your podcast app. You can also support the show over at Patreon, and get some bonuses for your troubles, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, yeah, Wolfgang Petersen directs this, which is kind of notable because he directed Das Boot, so he's no stranger to a water set movie. Speaking of, Richard Dreyfuss is in this, and he, of course, was mainly famous for Jaws, amongst other things, so he's also no stranger to a bit of water. Now, Kurt Russell's obviously the biggest star here. Does he have he's in a movie called Overboard, which is not meant to be very good. I don't know if I'd say that's something he was known for, though. I feel like that was like a footnote in his filmography.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I think I remember reading something where it was like he was in a similar sort of role, but I think it's spoilery to say how it was similar.
That's fine. So yeah, I mean that's your big sort of like older stars in the movie. But you got Emmy Rossum here, who was in Day After Tomorrow, which we just talked about recently, and we got the other people that I recognize are Freddie Rodriguez, because he was on 6 Feet Under. He's got a small role in here. We have the even sleazier Dillon brother, and Kevin Dillon.
I'll be honest, I don't know anything about the Dillons.
Well, to be honest, I like on it. I like for a minute when he first showed up, I went, "Oh, it's Matt Dillon," and I didn't even think about it. And then I looked at the name on the credits and went, "Oh, it's Kevin Dillon." Oh, that's right, he's got a brother, and it's the other one that I'm looking at. But because they're very similar looking, they've got a similar kind of vibe to them.
Oh yeah. I can't remember what I was looking at today. I think it was there was a TV movie for Poseidon Adventure that was a remake back in like 2005. It was right before this one came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it just has a Baldwin. It's a Baldwin I'd never heard of in my life. It just reminds me of a similar thing here.
Oh yeah, there's a few Baldwins, and only a couple of them are kind of well known. Alec being the most famous of them, of course.
I think this was Adam, maybe.
Oh, I know Adam Baldwin. Yeah.
Okay,
but
I've never heard of Adam Baldwin.
There's other Baldwins though. There's a Baldwin that's in the Christmas with a Capital C, which is a really bad looking Christian made movie, which no doubt one day we'll do on extra reels, but that's for the future to think about. So we have him in here as well, and other than that, we have a bunch of faces who I think have kept working in TV and things like that, but they're very, very mid 2000s people. And what I mean by that is that, like, I mean, I'll put it this way: Emmy Rossum's boyfriend in this movie is the most stereotypical young man from the mid 2000s you've ever seen, with a short, spiky hair.
Oh my god, yeah.
He honestly, and maybe it's just because so many like teenage like shows and movies at the time would have had actors his age playing teenagers. But when I looked at him the first time, when we first see them together and they're kind of canoodling, I thought, wait, why are you with this teenage boy, Emmy Rossum? He looks young, but it's the way he's dressed, it's his hair. I'm sure he's the same age, if not older than her, but it felt young to me in the moment.
He felt to me like he just walked off the set of some horror movie set in a high school.
Yes.
Like, he just walked off the set of just like, oh man, you got to help me out with Mrs. Anderson's calculus class. I'm just not getting it. Oh no, the killer's here.
Yeah, and that's Christian, played by Mike Vogel. We also have Josh Lucas playing Dylan Johns, who's kind of like a more daredevil-y, out for himself, like, but maybe he'll save people along the way kind of character.
Yep.
We have a few other ladies in the cast. We have a mother with a young son, who, of course, is going to be in jeopardy throughout the movie. That's Maggie James, played by Jacinda Barrett. And there's kind of I guess I'll say a stowaway. I mean, it's maybe a bit of a harsh word in this case. Crew-assisted stowaway, maybe a better phrase for it. But that's Elena, played by Mia Maestro, who... And honestly, yeah, a lot of these other names, like, and faces, I did not recognize. Like, if you look at their credits, they're in, like, tons of TV work over the last 20 years. So they've kept working, but, like, nothing with their big names or anything.
No. In terms of tertiary cast, I do want to bring up the captain is played by Andre Braugher.
Yes,
he obviously is there.
Holt!
And yes, exactly. And just to really, really cement this in the early to mid 2000s, our musical entertainment is Fergie.
Yes. Black Eyed Peas?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, nailed it. There you go.
Yep. I mean, she was also a solo act as well, but yes.
She? Okay. Yes. Well, yeah, she's there. And she's mostly just singing. She's just mostly doing what she normally does. She's
a lounge singer, but like, for where we see it here, it's a New Year's Eve party, so she's doing upbeat pop hits and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which is actually one of the big similar things to the original, is that was also set in New Year's. It's, they're having a countdown to New Year's just before the disaster strikes. There is some similar scenarios as they go through the ship, although, to my recollection, I think the characters are mostly different. I could be wrong, it's been a while since we did it, but I feel like most of the characters are different than the original movie.
Yeah, so the only major thing that I remember being different is that our primary character that we followed in the original one was a priest. Yes. That was kind of the big thing there. And then I remember there was also an older couple. There was a couple that was more elderly there. So there definitely has been a bunch of change-ups. I think there were also 2 kids, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong about that. But either way, yeah, we do have character shakeups for sure.
Yeah, also one of the problems is that we also did, on Patreon, we did the sequel to the original, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure.
I forgot about that.
And I think my brain is melding some of the characters from that into the original, and they're kind of blurring the lines a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I remember Michael Caine was definitely in the crappier sequel, but some of the side characters could have been in either, to be honest, from my memory.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's fair.
Yeah, so... Yeah, so I mean, honestly, while it's technically a remake, it mostly works as its own thing. It's just like effectively just another story about a ship getting turned upside down. So obviously there's going to be some similar ideas sprinkled throughout anyway. There's no reason to really worry about the fact that it's a remake too much as you're watching it. So yeah, that's the basic setup of it, and we'll see how we feel about this. I'd never seen this before. For whatever reason, I just never... maybe by the time 2006 hit, I was turning 17. Maybe the disaster movie kind of subgenre just wasn't as appealing to me anymore. I'm not sure what it would have been, but for whatever reason, I didn't bother seeing this at the time, and I never caught it on TV later or anything like that. So
yeah. I mean, I never really had a huge interest in, like, disaster movies as a whole. It's never something that I was really seeking out. The most I really was going for is the big, back before I had taste, the big like Roland Emmerich sort of like world-ending levels of disaster movies, but tinier little things like this, I don't know, didn't really do anything for me.
It's just a ship turning upside down. How puny, how pathetic. This is nothing.
Look, if I can't measure the death count in the millions, don't wake me up for it.
All right, David, what did you think of Poseidon?
Well, I wanna bring up 2 things. I want to bring up 2 awards that this was nominated for.
At the MTV Movie Awards?
No, actual like name awards. It was also at the MTV Movie Awards, but it was nominated for Best Achievement in Visual Effects at the Oscars. I'm not going to comment on that yet, but just know it's there. The other side of it, the other award, was the nominee for the worst remake or ripoff at the Razzie Awards. So you have the full breadth of Oscar nominated and Razzie nominated.
It reminds me a little bit of Suicide Squad 2016, which was obviously was nominated for tons of Razzies, but also I think even maybe one best
one best costume design.
Yeah, and it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing with our lives? Exactly.
Yep. So, funny you bring up Suicide Squad, because I'm going to segue into there. One of the things about Suicide Squad that was kind of annoying about that movie is how we spent like 45 minutes just setting up these characters and going through and spending way too long on all the setup and not enough on the plot. Pete, who the hell are these people in this movie? This movie did nothing to set up the characters for me, and then it all just spiraled out from there. I was so... I hesitate to say the word bored, but I'm feeling bored for most of this movie. I don't feel any connection to the characters. I think the action scenes are capable enough in their own right, but like there's no pausing for breath. There's no getting to know these people. It feels like action for the sake of action. And then on top of that, I bring up the Oscar nomination for the visual effects because apparently the ship was the big hotness. It was so cool. And while it's underwater, it looks fine, but they open this movie with an above water shot. It doesn't look fine. It looks pretty bad, all things considered. Maybe that's with time passing. Maybe it was better in 2006, but I feel like it looked like crap. So collectively, I think this movie has its upsides. There are things I will praise about it, but for the most part, I think that they failed at the word go from making it just zero connection to any of this ensemble. I don't know. Like at one point, there's a one of the I won't spoil who, but there's one of the characters gets like, gives a little kiss on the forehead and like a deep hug to this other character. I'm like, have you spoken for more than 5 minutes prior to this point? Like, it feels like there's this whole other thing going on here, but I'm not getting that through what you're showing me. So yeah, I'm disappointed in the character work, I guess is the biggest thing. And for an ensemble where I'm supposed to be caring about whether these people live or die, that's not a good thing.
I guess I'll start off with something, because I was going to open with one of the things you said, actually, which was the opening shots of the ship. Because they look like dog shit. And I think what was getting me, because they wanted to really do this one long take of the camera kind of like spinning around the ship, and it's sort of like, we sort of see like Josh Lucas's character running on deck, and we kind of we'd spin around and go down the other side of the ship. But everything has that kind of like very kind of CG sheen to it. It looks like a CG model the entire time. This felt like a classic example to me of like, we're a couple of years after, say, Day After Tomorrow, right? Well, we've been almost a decade since Titanic at this point, which is obviously the big boat movie that it put effects forward quite a bit. And it felt like, we've made a full model of the ship, we can do this whole camera shot around it. But honestly, it has all the telltale signs of just CGI. It doesn't have any sort of natural look or feel to it. And if anything, the long single take just emphasizes how fake everything is, because you've got time to really study it all. You've got time to really feel like there's no restrictions to how they move the camera. Everything about it just reeks. And the worst part of it for me is that when it gets towards the end of the shot, it kind of comes back into focus on Josh Lucas again. Right. And he stops at the banister at the edge of the ship. And the background's still CG, and it looks like a horrible composite the entire time. Yeah. It's not like because I think a smarter way of doing this, if you're going to keep with the rest of the ship opening bit, is you transition into a real bit of a set for just that moment of him standing there. But it's not. It's still composited against CGI, and as a result, the entire... Now, luckily, we never see the outside of the ship again in daytime for the rest of the whole movie, so it actually isn't a problem that much going forward. And if anything, I do think the effects for the rest of the movie are mostly pretty solid. It's just this one big thing, they had such a... they were so proud of this, and it's the worst looking part of the entire movie. So, I don't know.
No, that's the thing, is like, I see that nomination on there for Best Visual Effects, and apparently they also had the Guinness World Record in 2010, I think, for like most detailed CG set or something like that. And I just look at that and I just feel like they're consolation prizes. Like, they're the prizes that you give to like a crying 5-year-old of like, we put in so much effort into this. Can someone please acknowledge us? And it's like, yeah, fine. You did good. You made a good model, but like, it doesn't look good. And I do think what you brought up with the compositing is like the absolute last straw. It would have looked bad if it were on its own, but putting a real person in there just emphasizes how bad it is.
Yeah, and there's actually one, and again, it's only one small sequence, so it's not like a consistent problem throughout the whole movie, but there is like one sequence early on, just in like the foyer part of the ship. Oh, that's what I'm calling it, for lack of a better term, but the stairs are and there's elevators, and it's Josh Lucas talking to one of the other characters, Elena, and everything in that scene looked composited to me, and I don't know if it was just like a weird thing they were doing with the focus, but both the shot, reverse shot of both of them looked like a bad composite to me. And I don't know if it was, or maybe something's went awry here in the color like grading or something that's made it look a bit faker. But for some reason, it looked really off to me. But it's just that one scene. Like, the rest of it looks fine. It looks like a normal movie, but that one scene looked really weird to me.
I don't recall it doing it. I mean, I think there's a lot of shots before we get into the actual disaster part of it. During that first 15 minutes, I think there is a lot of shots that feel weird. I don't feel like I don't know. It's almost like they didn't feel comfortable with this part of the movie. Like, the cinematography itself just felt a little strange.
I was almost wondering if it was like, well, all the sets they've built have been designed around how they look once the disasters happened. So maybe they like didn't like do a nice clean normal version of some of the rooms, so they're just compositing it. No, I don't know. I mean,
that's possible. I'll take that as an explanation, because that's the other part of it is like it takes 15 minutes to get to the disaster, and we've got no less than 10 characters to set up, and I don't feel like we set up even 3 of them.
Well, I've not even gotten to the characters. I'm just talking about the openings. Like, I mean, to get to the characters, like, I kind of half agree with you. I don't know. Like, I think that it does an okay enough job of like giving you a starting point for each character, right? You've got Kurt Russell, who's this rich guy. Emmy Rossum's his daughter. She's with her boyfriend, and things are kind of awkward there. Where, you know, they're scared of him, or the boyfriend's scared of him at least. But some of it also feels kind of weirdly like dated, where he's like, oh, please button up one more button of your shirt, please. And it's like, okay, fine, this feels like ancient even by 2006 standards. But then, you know, and you've got like kind of, okay, we've set up Josh Lucas's character. We've set up the mother and son. We've set up the kind of the stowaway character and the fact that she's dating, you know, Freddie Rodriguez's character who works in the kitchen and the galley. So I think it does an okay enough job of giving them all starting points. I think, and I'm okay with them getting to the disaster as quickly as they did. I think where it falls flat for me for the characters is that I don't think it does enough with what they've set up once they're past the point of the disaster. Once they're starting to work together to survive. Once they're starting to do things. A lot of it's spoilery, so I can't really say much, but I will say that there's some things that I thought they were setting up that then just kind of didn't really happen or go anywhere or whatever. I was okay with it getting to the disaster as quickly as it did. I don't think it needed to, don't get me wrong. I think you could have taken a little bit more time. I was, if anything, I thought, oh, maybe we'll start this one a little bit different from the original. Maybe we'll start where they're still at the port, and maybe we'll see some of the characters get onto the boat, and we'll have more of a sort of grace-in period. But no, we start, we're already at sea, so on, so on.
I hear what you're saying, and I do agree that I think that once it hits the disaster part, they're not doing enough to like keep things going, keep the plot moving in terms of the character stuff. But I will also just, I don't think that they succeed in the beginning part, to the point of the character you're saying dating Freddie Rodriguez, Elena, dating her. That is what the beginning of the movie says. That is absolutely correct. But then shortly thereafter, when Elena gets a bit more talking time, she reveals, oh no, I just met him in a club and he's letting me like bunk with him as we're going across. Like, they barely know each other, and yet that's not what the movie is saying. Like, this is, it's so weird the way the first part of this is set up, because so many characters are given that like one note, the little thing to get you to latch onto. But by the time that the rest of the movie continues on, it feels like that one note was wrong. It was like just completely not the part of it that was to be set up. The only thing I'll give it credit for is that they do go the full mile with the father-daughter and then the daughter's boyfriend. Like, that little 3-person relationship thing going on of like he's overbearing to her and they want to stay together. that gets fully explored, and kudos there. But everything else, including Josh Lucas's character, who I would argue is the protagonist, like he is the Gene Hackman of this movie, he doesn't feel like he's fleshed out at all. I don't feel like I know anything about him.
I mean, no, you're right. I would kind of split it. I feel like Gene Hackman gets split into two characters. Half is Kurt Russell, half is him. Right? That's how I feel with there. I don't think the whole Elena thing is necessarily a contradiction. I think it's just about learning more about it, so it's revealing more about it. Now, I'm not saying it's good the way it does it or anything. I'm not, like, I don't feel that strongly about the lack of things in the first 15 minutes, because I don't think it does necessarily anything that egregiously wrong in the first 15 minutes for the characters. For me, it's just how it doesn't actually keep taking those things further. Because at least early on, it's like, okay, you've set up Kurt Russell, his daughter, and potentially future son-in-law, right? And it sets up that, okay, he's in the big ballroom where a lot of people are. She's off in the little nightclub area with her boyfriend. So immediately you've got, okay, so we've got one character who has a reason to want to get to point B, from A to B, and that's like sort of an initial set of quests we can have and all that. So it's set up enough to give some motivations to get things kick-started once the disaster got underway. At that point, though, after we sort of get past that, almost everything, or any characters that I thought there was going to be growth from, that failed to kind of materialize. They just, and even stuff that they felt like they were actually still setting up, just ended up not going anywhere. But I don't want to talk about all that yet, because I mean it's all spoiler stuff. So at this point, I think we just have to kind of pivot away from like the character failures.
That's fine.
But I guess I'm saying I think you were being slightly harsh on the first 15 minutes, but I think it still shits the bed because of the rest of the movie.
That's fair. And I think the reason that I might be a little bit harsher on that is I always read a little bit of trivia, just trying to come in with little fun facts for this. And part of it was the initial screening of this, whether it be test screening, audience, whatever, apparently it was like 30 minutes longer. And 20 minutes out of those 30 minutes were before the disaster. So, like, they had the fleshing out. They had the stuff there. And it wasn't even the studio who pushed for it. Apparently, the director was like, no, we don't need all that. Let's get to the disaster faster. But, like, I feel like he needs it. I feel like if you didn't have that stuff filmed after the disaster happened, and you did have it here, that's just poor editing on your part.
No, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I think there could have been more there for sure. I'm judging it as it is, what we've got. And I feel like it gives enough starting line to all those characters. Now, admittedly, yeah, you're right. If he knew that they didn't develop a lot of these things later on, and all that development was in the first chunk, and they cut it all out, then yeah, that's a problem. But I in the way that the movie's presented to me, the 15 minutes at the start doesn't really do anything that wrong, other than some really ugly CG and stuff like that. And instead, and a couple of really kind of like tropey, like, again, as much as I'm saying it doesn't do anything egregiously wrong, I mean from a perspective of like at least giving us something to set up with. I do think some of the protective father, like button up your shirt, like that feels really like a dated trope by this movie's like standards, even, never mind like today. So anyway, so the actual disaster stuff, I went through kind of like different phases of this. I think the initial disaster stuff is pretty decent. I think the initial disaster stuff, I was enjoying well enough. It felt like, this is where the effects difference from 1972 to 2006 where we were getting the most benefit, where they were getting to show a lot more things happen, and it felt like it was a little bit gnarlier. I felt like I was seeing a lot more deaths and impalements and things like that. However, I think the last act, which is, kind of when we're doing a lot more like swimming to get to another area of the ship, and like, there's a lot of threat of drowning and so on and so on. I think that section is boring as shit. I was losing so much interest in the last like 30, 40 minutes of this movie. And I don't think it needed to do anything that great to keep my attention. I think it just lacked a good sense of direction. And part of this is probably because by that point it kind of became clear that I wasn't going to care any more about the characters than I already had. So it was hard to get invested in some of that. And then there's a couple of stupid things like, for some reason the child keeps wandering off and is now suddenly in danger. Like that, just out of nowhere that happens at one point. It's just like, oh, come on, what are we doing?
Yeah, we'll get to that moment, like especially the last one that happens, but I swear to God, like without spoiling anything, the moment they get to like a second of safety, that kid must have sprinted away from the rest of the group. There is no way that he got as far as he did just by casually meandering.
I honestly, at a certain point, I'm thinking to the mother, Maggie, I'm just like, she should just be like, you know what? I did my best. I'm just going to let him go off to sea like Jack from Titanic. I'm just, I'm accepting my new freedom.
You know what you do in the opening scene where she's flirting with Josh or whatever? Have her drop a book and see that the book is Darwin's Origin of Species, and just be like, "Up, Darwinism. Yeah, he's the survival of the fittest. He didn't make it. Oh well."
Dear. So yeah, I mean that's my big thing is that I think in the middle of the movie I wasn't having a bad time, honestly. Like I was having a decent enough time with the initial kind of disaster and obstacles that they were presented with. But the longer it went on, the more and more bored I got, and the less interested I was in what was happening.
Yeah.
So I think the third act for me was just kind of a big dud. So my overall opinion of the movie is pretty negative all in, but it's not like I could have seen myself getting through this and being, you know, in the middle I was thinking, oh, I could get through this and saying I had a decent time with it. But it kind of sadly kept dipping, no pun intended, as it went on.
No, I mean, I know we don't want to hang out on the characters for too much more, but I do think that is the biggest problem here is it feels so ADD with how the way the action is paced. There is never, for even like 2 minutes, a down moment. There's never a moment for these characters to catch their breath, to talk to each other so that we as the audience can find out any more about them. Even when there is a more quiet moment, there's this like panicked look on everyone. Like everyone just knows that they need to keep on moving. And maybe that's accurate. Maybe that's a thing of like, of course they're not going to take a moment to breathe. That's not whatever. But it's the same sort of thing of what's lighting up the water underneath. You got to make changes for the sake of it being a movie. Like you got to be able to make it so that we are able to learn about these people as we go. And by the time that it hit the third act, I think that yes, it was boring from a viewpoint of it felt like there was nothing more to really do, but also I didn't have any attachment to these people. I needed a little bit of something there. And in the third act, it just was like, all right, well, at this point, you all could die. And I'm not sure I would care one way or another.
I feel like you're being harsher here relative to other disaster movies we've done. Like, do you think the characters here are worse than Day After Tomorrow? Because I don't think they are. I think they're on par.
On the whole, no. But I do think that Day After Tomorrow took those downtime moments. Like at no point in this movie was there ever a sequence where like, you know, where he makes his love confession to the girl or whatever that he wants to see, or they have a moment to talk about whether or not they could expect to find the sun out in New York or whatever. Like they don't have a second of anything like that here.
Okay, yeah,
to flesh out the characters.
Yeah, you're looking at potential causes for why you feel the way you do, and that's fine. But the end result, I feel, is pretty similar in both cases with how much I care about the characters in either movie. I think they're equally thin in both movies, which I guess that's why I'm surprised at the level of like enthusiasm you've got here. I don't know what the word is.
when I clarified on the whole, I think what it more so is Day After Tomorrow had maybe 2 characters I cared about out of the whole ensemble. I don't think I cared about any of the characters in this one. I think all of them are negative. And being able to latch on to anything in The Day After Tomorrow was at least giving me something to move forward with. It was giving me a tiny little something to latch onto. This one, no matter what scene we cut to, as we're intercutting between all this stuff, I don't even have a single character I find myself caring about. And that's I think the bigger issue here. I
mean, that's fair. I just don't think this is that much worse than like some of the other ones we've done this season.
Fair enough.
Like
I get what you're saying. I understand it. Like, if you think the characters are fine, then yeah, I don't think.
Well, I don't even think they're that good. Like, I don't want this to be misconstrued as me defending anything. You're just coming at this with such a passion where I'm like, why are these characters pissing you off much more than Day After Tomorrow when I think they're like dead even?
I will say I might be going into this with a little bit of bias because I have the original under my belt as well. And that one did such a good job of like taking its time going through. We get to know the character. Gene Hackman was an honest to God 3-dimensional charter with how much pathos they gave him and all that.
No question. The original's way better because the characters are way better. And they did really well with the practical stuff, you know, the effects and the stunts that they had at the time. No, I mean, there's no question there.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe that's part of it as well, is that like I see that and I think of like, oh, that was such a, they knew how to do it then, and we lost something along the way to get to this one.
It's like it's the tone when you started talking about the characters right at the start of this review. It felt like you were starting an Extra Reels review with the level of like hatred you seem to have. And I'm like, I just don't know why you feel that passionate. Nothing about this movie makes me feel passionate. Like I'm lacking passion here.
I mean, I don't want to be dispassionate the entire time I'm doing it. Like I said, my first words out of my mouth was I was bored. I was bored by a lot of it, but I think I'm just more angry because I've seen this done well. I've seen this exact movie done well. It's not like impossible to do. They did it 30 years prior to this one coming out. So I don't know. Maybe that's what pisses me off more, is that like it feels the same sort of way as the modern day sort of soulless Hollywood pulling a brand back out of death for the sake of making a quick buck.
Like it's not good, obviously. It's pretty bland, but I also don't think it's the worst. Like I think it's pretty inoffensive for the most part. Like I like it's not like I'm never going to put this on like a worst movie ever or worst movie of the decade list by any stretch of the imagination. It's one of those very middling, bland movies that has a couple of nice stunt and effects sequences, and that's about it. It could be more. I wish it was more, but like, you know, that's where it is.
No, I mean, I'm on the same boat. Maybe I'm just a little bit more impassioned with how much I wish it was more, but I agree. It's not the worst thing ever. I know that this has a lot, much in the same way of Day After Tomorrow and Armageddon, stuff like that. I think a lot of it is probably fueled by nostalgia. A lot of it is probably people who grew up with this, but I know this movie has its defenders. For me, it just felt so frustrating to go through this because it was right there. I feel like it's so easy to be right there and then just miss the mark, and that makes it all the more frustrating.
I mean, to compare it to the last, Day After Tomorrow a little bit, I would say that Kurt Russell's more star power than that movie had, like immediately. He's Kurt Russell.
I don't feel like it was used effectively, though. Like, I more star power, fine, I guess, but like it's.
I never said it was used effectively. I just said there was more star power. Like, are you arguing to me that Dennis Quaid is on the same level as Kurt Russell for star power?
No, I didn't even give Dennis Quaid the top actor of that movie. Like, I was absolutely not vouching for him. But like, I don't care about star power. You can give me a movie that is entirely a list of nobodies, and as long as they're doing a good job, I'll take it.
I mean, you're right. Like, obviously, yes, give me a great movie with a bunch of people I don't know any day of the week. But I'm saying that in this type of shallow blockbuster type movie, a little bit of star power with charisma goes, a little bit to help and smooth things over a touch.
You just added on that bit though with charisma. I didn't feel any charisma. I felt like Kurt Russell was just like bland and boring as much as anybody else in this movie. That's why I feel like Josh Lucas is the star of this, because at the very least, he feels like he's emoting. He feels like he's doing something big.
See, Josh Lucas feels like he's trying to be the new generation's Kurt Russell, but he's not good enough to be the new generation's Kurt Russell. That's what's happening there. I appreciate
the effort. I appreciate the effort, at least.
All right. I mean, Kevin Dillon's a complete like drunk pervert, so I mean, you've got that.
He's in it for like enjoy. 6 seconds. He is in it to introduce his character. He comes back after the disaster, and I won't say what number death he is, but trust me, he ain't making it through this movie.
Well, he's the like antagonistic type character. He's the one who's clearly going to cause problems, which means maybe for drama's sake, they could have maybe had him around a little bit longer to cause more problems, but that's,
Yeah, no, I mean, that goes back to the same thing we were saying for Day After Tomorrow is there once everybody unites against the thing, you need to have people either opening up so we can find out their internal conflicts, or you need to have external conflicts. This movie does neither.
Yes, except the ocean.
My God.
That's
Poseidon himself.
Poseidon himself. So yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I guess we'll get to spoilers there. I feel like we've probably exhausted what we can. I mean, I guess we usually talk about score, and the score's there. There's a bit of a theme, but it didn't really stick out to me too much.
I mean, the fact during the whole sweeping going around the boat, that's the only other thing that's going on is the score. So I had it in my mind at least when it started coming up later, but it wasn't. It's not a like wildly impressive score. It feels like a stripped back orchestra, and they just came up with something that worked.
It feels kind of like they're going for like a hopeful kind of heroic theme kind of thing. That's what they're kind of going for. A little bit of majesty because like, we take the sea seriously. But I don't know. It's fine. It's fine for what it is. I don't really feel strongly about it in any particular way. So, spoilers then for Poseidon. You've been warned. So, I mean, we kind of went over most of the starting points for the characters, but I guess the only things I would add on is Richard Dreyfuss is a wealthy man who I think is supposed to be gay, and his boyfriend or husband has dumped him and ran off with someone else, which is why just before the wave hits, he's about to jump into the water, but changes his mind when he sees the wave coming. Which, like, don't get me wrong, I actually think that there's a potentially good idea here, right? Someone who was at the brink of wanting to take their life and then having to fight for it. But the reason why he runs back, presumably, in part, is because, he needs to go and warn everyone else. It's more of a noble intention, perhaps, right?
You'd think you'd be forgiven for thinking that's what's going to happen.
Right, so that's the start of his story, right? That's him. Kurt Russell, he used to be the mayor of New York. I think they say that at one point, but...
Yep.
He gave
Kurt
that
Russell
up.
Plays Rudy Giuliani,
but he's still very rich though. He's still he's betting thousands at the poker table and whatever else is going on. So we've got that. And
see, I was just to jump in briefly. That's one of the first scenes in the movie. Is he enters while his daughter and her boyfriend are getting a little bit close, not like having sex, but just hanging out.
They're cuddling. They're cuddling and making the eyes at each other. That's about it.
And he specifically says the line of like, now you guys, you're technically still living under my roof. And this is before we get any backstory for him. So in my mind, I'm thinking, he's like the architect, or he's like the guy who owns the boat. Like, that's why he's so rich and this is so opulent or whatever. It's only until later that they say, no, he was the mayor and then a firefighter and all this other stuff. I'm like, what do you mean he's under your roof then? I don't understand what we're talking. You bought the room? Is that it?
I think it's... Yeah, this fancy suite they're in, which is a very big room to have on a cruise ship. At the very least, he's the one who's renting that. So that's on his roof.
If that's what they're talking about, it was a weird line that sent me in the wrong direction. You're
right, though. My assumption when he said that was that he owns the boat. Not that he's the captain, because he's not a sailor, but he owns the boat. And they never actually outright say that he doesn't. But I mean, how successful... I would assume
he would have pulled that out at some point, any point throughout the movie, of like, oh no, my boat sank.
Yeah, he never talks about his boat, like, losing his boat. So, yeah, I guess he doesn't. But that's to who I took that line as well. I have to admit, I also read it that way. So, yeah, and, like, they've got a secret they're going to tell him. We find out later on it's that he's proposed and they're going to get married, whatever.
Did you think the secret was anything else?
The only other thing I thought is because he seemed like protective and kept her close, is that maybe she like wanted to move away for college and go and live with her boyfriend somewhere else. I thought it could be something like that, but I mean, yeah, marriage was the most likely.
Yeah, because they play it as a reveal about halfway through. They're like, "Oh, he's proposed to me. We're gonna get engaged." And I was like, I later on they say like why he didn't come to the father first, but I'm like, I feel like that. She should have been the last one to find out about this. I feel like the father absolutely should have been first.
Well, I mean, I don't think that tradition is something everyone has to do. It's a gesture if you want to make it, if you happen to be in good terms with your potential father-in-law.
Right.
But, yeah, it's weird to say, we decided you shouldn't know. I'm like, well, that means you already asked her. So you already made that choice. It wasn't a joint discussion. Unless one day she sat him down and says, by the way, just in case in the next couple of years you decide to propose, because I'm amazing and I know you want to, just in case you do, don't ask my father for permission. It's a bad idea. I'm telling you right now up front. There's a disclaimer in advance.
That was during the period where he was mayor of New York. He's like, he will sick the NYPD on you. You will end up on the news. Everything will go badly.
Yeah, it felt like there was a lot of backstory there that was probably cut out, just because she has a line at one point where someone says, oh, that's cool, you were the daughter to the mayor when you were a kid. And she's like, no, it wasn't cool. And that's all you ever get. No, it wasn't cool. And it's like, oh, what, did he get impeached or something? What happened?
Well, that's later on we get Lucky Larry. He gives the whole backstory through taunting, like, schoolyard teases. He's like, oh yeah, you were this big shot firefighter and then you became mayor, but you couldn't hold on to that. You quit the job and also you got divorced from your wife. And he's like, yep, that's my backstory. Thanks for giving it.
So we got that going on. He's playing poker, as is Josh Lucas, who's doing well, and they're betting big. Although ultimately Kurt Russell loses because when his daughter comes up, when Jennifer comes up to say hello, he gets a little bit, seriously, honey, button up that shirt, you're showing off. And she's like, my
You are
twins.
literally walking around this ship topless. How dare you?
And she just sort of casually says, "Oh, pair of fives, Dad. That's nice," and walks away. So then Josh Lucas goes all in because he knows what his hand is. So it's like, okay, fair enough. Also, Joe would have been a really nice little character bit here. Is before the daughter shows up and they're just playing poker. Kevin Dillon, Lucky Larry, he's sitting playing as well, and he smacks the waitress on the ass, and she clearly doesn't like it. It's clearly inappropriate, and she's uncomfortable. It would have been really nice for one of our central characters, either Kurt Russell, who at this point I thought owned the boat, or Josh Lucas, who's just meant to be one of our heroes, for one of them to turn to him and say, hey, stop that. That would have been lovely, just to make me like them a little bit.
You don't even need that. You can keep it even like simpler of just during that hand, they take him for all he's got. Like he loses a big hand and they're just like, yeah, screw you. You deserve that. Like it's so simple. But no, nothing.
Even just like a shared glance of like, this guy's a prick, you know? Just something to let us know they disapprove of what he's just done, but nah.
Yep.
Not a lick of it. Dear.
The other thing, just before, like, that's when all the parties and stuff like that gets started. The other thing that we get set up here is Josh Lucas runs into the kid running around and then by default runs into the mom and they hit it off. He's immediately flirting. And that's, again, we're setting up for something to happen after the disaster happened, that this is going to be a little thing that's going to grow between all of them.
Obviously, given the situation they're going to be in later, I didn't expect a romance per se, but I thought, there's going to be like a running thing where he saves the kid for her and like they bond, they feel like a family unit, even though there's no like time for romance yet. So like I thought maybe they'd do something with that. He also runs into Elena, who's sort of like looking around the ship and she doesn't really know her way around. And when she asks for directions to the galley, Josh Lucas is like, And at this point, I didn't know Josh Lucas wasn't like part of the crew. Because to be honest, all I'd seen was him jogging outside, which made me think, he's like, first seaman or something. I don't know. But he like, hey, you'd have went, this is like the main foyer area, you'd have went through here when you were introduced onto the ship. And there's just like an awkward silence, and he just sort of gives her directions and smiles as if, okay, you're not meant to be here, and I don't care, but on your way. And it turns out that she is a stowaway in Freddie Rodriguez, who works on the galley. She's a stowaway hiding in his cabin, and when she finds him, he's like, hey, you're not supposed to leave there. He gives her some food, but later on the backstory is that her brother is sick, and this ship's going to New York, and this was like because she met Freddie Rodriguez, and he was nice, and he let her stow away in his cabin. Yeah, it does turn, because it up front it looks like they're in a relationship. Later on, we find out, okay, they've only just kind of met, but they do seem to like each other. It's not like...
Yeah.
It feels like it's the start of something, but it's not as far along as we thought it maybe was.
And that's like... I don't want to get to it yet, but Freddie Rodriguez does end up dying in a very specific way. And I've got
a lot to say about these sequence of events, yes.
It feels so out of nowhere, but I feel like that was all set up to the idea of, oh no, she's lost this person, and like the other people knew about it, and they were able to either push the group apart via that or bond them closer together because they can offer condolences and they can do whatever. Nothing happens. I'm not even sure.
Since we're on this, we're just going to talk about it. We're not talking about it around it now, just so we can talk about it again later. Okay. Right?
All right.
So the whole thing is that when the disaster happens and a small group of characters, including Freddie Rodriguez and all of our main group, have to cross this elevator shaft, and they have to like put a metal table across, and they're holding it. It's a whole sequence. But at the end of the sequence, he's the one who dies. He's the only one who dies. And it happens when, after the table goes flying and he's hanging on to Richard Dreyfuss's leg, and they're trying to pull them both up, but obviously it's two people, so it's quite heavy, and the elevator's like threatening to come down like the entire time, and it's going to happen. Eventually Josh Lucas is the one who looks straight at Richard Dreyfuss in the face and says, you're going to have to shake him off or you're both going to die. So Richard Dreyfuss starts kicking Freddy Rodriguez in the face till he falls to his death and gets impaled on like the metal like shrapnel. It's at well, technically the top of the shaft because it's upside down, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The bottom of the shaft. And they pull him across, and they both Josh Lucas and Dreyfuss look kind of guilty, and they look at each other, and it's like, that's the moment. And of course, when they get to the daughter, Emmy Rossum's character, that's where Elena also is. So they meet Elena, and there's one little scene where Richard Dreyfuss goes to talk to Elena and says, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, and she's like, she explains her backstory. This is where we learn a lot of it. And she brings up, "Oh, I was staying with someone who works in the galley," and I thought, okay, they've set something up here. We've set up that Richard Dreyfuss has guilt because he had to like intentionally, not even just let someone die, he had to like physically force someone into a position of death to survive, and he feels guilty about that. He has now met the person, at least at the time when he died, I thought was like the love of his life.
Yeah.
And later on, they're with her, and at some point, somehow, it's going to come out that he's dead and that he had to be, you know, he's maybe going to like realize what he's done and try and confess to her or whatever it is, but it'll be a growing tension throughout the story because we've set this up. No one ever realizes that person was the one she knew. Elena never finds out that he's definitely dead. She probably assumes that he's dead at a certain point because, you know, most of the ship's dead, but, you know, eventually. But
yeah,
never finds out. And the whole idea of Richard Dreyfuss having guilt, which in theory should be extra interesting because he was ready to jump off the ship at the start of the movie. The idea that he is now fighting for his life and he's let someone else die to save himself should be conflicting for him. There should be a lot of inner turmoil. And if anything, I feel like it should be building up to him making a big sacrifice towards the end of the movie.
Yes.
None of these things, none of them happen because they never find out. And not only that, Elena later on in the movie is one of the characters who dies. She dies, and it's not really Dreyfuss's fault, but he's kind of the one close to her, and I thought, oh, maybe his redemption is going to be saving her. Like, that's going to be the flip of the coin. No, he lives and she dies. So both people in this couple, by the end of the movie, are dead, and like nothing has been resolved, nothing's been learned as a result, because no one even knew that they were related to each other. No one ever found out that they cared about each other. It's just two separate characters to them. It does feel like something got cut somewhere here that tied some of this shit together, but I don't know.
No, I absolutely agree. It feels like there are so many dangling threads that are so obvious to grab onto. Any one of these would have been furthering that plot at least a little bit, and none of them, not a single one of them gets grabbed. And just to extend on that, even ignoring the Dreyfuss and Elena stuff, the fact that Dreyfuss killed Freddy Rodriguez on the command/advice of Josh Lucas, I thought was going to be setting up this idea, this thing moving forward, that Josh Lucas, as we have already established at this point, prefers to work alone. He's a bad boy and a rebel. He wants to survive at all costs. Whereas we have literally the firefighter character of Kurt Russell, who can play the opposite of that, who's always putting himself in harm's way, trying to save everybody.
And notably, Josh Lucas is the one who said, kick him off, because otherwise you're both dead. Now, don't get me wrong. It's technically, arguably the right choice in the moment, as bad as it is. But I thought this idea of him making all these really dark choices to sacrifice people to win was going to be a major thing that was going to cause conflict at some point later on, and maybe he would grow into more of a hero by the end.
Yes, he makes the sacrifice play at some point later down in order to save the kid, because we've already set up the fact that he's connected to the kid. I don't want to say the movie writes itself, but like, you gave me 15 minutes of setup, and I feel like all of this is obvious from that. It's all so clear where it needs to happen.
Which is why I said the first 15 minutes is fine, because it gives you all the building blocks to build the rest of the movie. It's just the rest of the movie does nothing with those blocks.
Yeah,
you're right. It's like a child just throwing the blocks out the buggy, just like, no, don't want that one. Nope, don't want that one.
I as soon as he said, like, you're going to have to kick him off, and they film it, like, obviously he's trying to hold on to two people, but, like, they film him in such an unflattering way as well. They make him look like gritted teeth and, like, red-faced and all that. It feels like they're setting him up of, like, this is going to be the guy who's going to be self-serving, an antagonist to the rest of the group. He's going to put himself before others,
but make the turn by the end, like have the hero's journey, and So what we're saying here is that the movie sets up quite clearly that Richard Dreyfuss and Josh Lucas are the two that should be sacrificing themselves to save different people. Like Richard Dreyfuss should sacrifice himself to save Elena because of what he did to Freddy Rodriguez, and Josh Lucas should sacrifice himself to save the kid. Because he needs to be a good person by the end.
Or the rest of the group as a whole, but maybe like the kid specifically out of it.
Yeah. And no, it's Kurt Russell who dies, and it's Elena who dies.
Yep.
For reasons.
I just want to clip that and just use it anytime. For reasons. Why not? No, yeah, it's frustrating. So just to rewind slightly, going back to the disaster moment itself, there's two things that happen. One after another, one good, one bad. The first is after we get all the setup and they're doing the countdown, they're like going to midnight and all that. Right before that, we cut to the deck. We cut to like the captain's quarter, like the people who are actually steering the ship. And nothing has happened. To be clear, not a single thing has happened yet because it is a rogue wave, not like stormy seas or anything. It's one singular wave that causes this. But for some reason, one guy on the deck is like, something's not right. No, something's wrong here.
Do you know what it is? To use something from Das Boot, actually, I think. Well, not even from Das Boot, but like so when we did Wing Commander on the Ace, right? Which you weren't on that episode, that was before your time.
I was not.
And I don't know if you've gotten to that yet, but that is not like yet. A extra reels caliber video game adaptation sci-fi movie. But Jürgen Prochnow from Das Boot is in that movie. And clearly they wanted to kind of like use him in that role. And there's a moment in that movie where he like gets really quiet and he's like, shh, there's a destroyer hunting us, right? It's like he can sense it. Now, the really dumb thing about that is that they're in space and noise means nothing because they would. You can have a rave and they wouldn't hear you on the other ship. It's fine. Right. But that's what this moment is. It's like just this one guy on the bridge is just kind of like, wait a minute. I sense something in the wind. My sixth sense is firing off. I can sense a wave coming, which does, like, I don't know, like, do you get one singular big rogue wave like this randomly in the ocean? Is this a thing that happens without cause?
I look, we said the exact same thing during the Poseidon Adventure review, which was like, look, people are going to be experts about stuff. They're going to say whether or not it can or cannot happen. I'm going to say, sure, if we can have just tsunamis, if we can have like long waves of raised elevation, I see no reason why we can't have one big spike as well. But
yeah,
it feels weird.
I thought it'd be more of a sign, like just a little bit of a storm brewing or a little bit of a rough waters first, know?
Well, I would say even the opposite. Like everything goes a bit too still. Everything's like the way that the water retracts before a tsunami. Everything's just a bit too still, and now this happens here. But my problem I have with the sequence is not the fact that it's partially the fact that he senses it out of nothing, but it's also that it doesn't mean anything. He doesn't do anything with that information. He's not like, get everybody on red alert, do something else, or like no one's like talking him down saying, hey, relax, man. It's all they're all just sitting there tense now, and then someone looks out the window and goes, oh, hey, the moon just got blocked by something. That's an issue.
It feels like 2006, right? And one of the points actually after the capsize is that Andre Braugher's character, because he's in the ballroom with everyone else, and he's like, hey, the good news is that as soon as the boat tipped over, automatic like GPS signals went out, like rescue's coming, like this is all automatic now, which makes sense. We're in the 2000s, this stuff should just be happening. Makes sense. Good stuff, right? But the idea that they're caught so off guard by this wave that there's not a single thing, like instrument on the ship, that's like assessing the weather conditions, and what's the beeping happening? What's going on?
Sorry, it snowed recently in my place, so there's just snow plows outside.
That's fine. I'm just making sure I'm not going crazy. So it's like, surely not a single instrument on this ship like monitors like the water conditions of the surrounding area. Nothing like that. I mean, is that not a thing?
I'm sure it does. Like, and maybe that's what actually tipped them off to it. It seems like it was binoculars. It seems like it was just a lookout guy who saw it. But like maybe that's what tipped them off to some extent. But the bigger thing is, can they do anything about it? Like immediately they turn all of the engines to starboard, which I don't know what that was supposed to do. Like, was the plan that they wanted to take it on the side of the ship so that it didn't like crunch in front.
They're trying to turn it into the wave. They're trying, so they want to hit it dead on. That's what they start doing.
So they messed up like as hard as humanly possible here.
Yeah, it was too late. They left it too late.
Yeah.
If they'd got, I mean, it's no guarantee they'd have been fine. But I think generally speaking, you want to take a wave head on because then the boat goes like that over it. Whereas if you get hit in the side, it just, again, just very layman's understanding of this shit. To be clear, I'm not a sailor and know nothing about this, but that seems to be the idea, but obviously they're just too late. It's just too far gone by the time they start turning. I will say the chaos once it starts flipping is pretty fun. There's people, obviously some of this was in the original, people sliding and things like that. Here there's a lot more like people getting like tangled up in electric wires and burning to death and all sorts of crazy stuff.
That was the second thing I was going to bring up, is this whole sequence here, the idea of going through and showing like the way that it all flips upside down and you see the people sliding around. It's good. We then keep getting like more. It keeps building where not only is it people sliding around and doing whatever, but then we also see like, oh, the kitchen explodes. Like there's a flash fire, and it's very like graphic in the way it shows the people in the flames and all that. And all that, more or less, I'm good with. Like, I think it was a good sequence. I think that it built up and made it a big enough explosion. It feels good. But then they do one bit of, I think it might have even been like they had like a 30-second gap, or like they moved on to the next sequence. And then all of a sudden there's a guy who steps into like a puddle of oil that gets ignited by a dangling wire, and then like he gets electrocuted and is like set on fire. And I'm like, all right, now it's just Final Destination. Like this guy was just on death's list and he was supposed to be taken out immediately.
Yeah, I'm okay with that in the silly fun sense of like, this is the sort of stuff where you can go further than the original. You can have like these extra things beyond just people sliding around. And don't get me wrong, arguably it was more impressive in the original what they achieved, because it was all like, no, we're going to build a set that tips to the side and whatnot.
Yeah.
Here, obviously some of it's CG, some of it's like other trickery that's going on. But no, the sequence as a whole's fine. And then, I think the boyfriend character's pinned under like the lighting rig in the nightclub.
It's like a lighting scaffolding, something or another.
Yeah. So there's a whole like try to like get, and it's Emmy Rossum and Elena who are trying to like get him out of it. Eventually the Dylan brother is there and he helps them, even though he's just like a drunk fool the entire time. But he's very much that type of character.
They have such a weird moment here too, because like they try to use leverage. The whole thing is they start with lifting. They realize they need to use leverage, and Elena goes off to get a big pipe, brings back the Dylan brother. And then as they're trying to lift, the Dylan brother says, no, you need to like stick something underneath it. You need to like have a pivot point that you can lift it higher off of. And then they do it, and they try it for like 5 seconds. And then the Dylan brother's just like, all right, this is too much. Like, we're going to have to think of something else. And then Emmy Rossum just turns around and says, let's go again. And then they do it and it works. And I'm like, why did we have that? Why was there this tiny little section where it's just like, oh, okay, let's give it another shot?
I think it was meant to show that he gives up too easily.
All right. I didn't feel like that from there. I was just like, all right.
I'm trying to parse it. It was a weird moment, but like, it felt like that extra step was to show that he just like, it wasn't instantly easy, so he just kind of backed out. And they're like, no, let's just actually really try to do it, and then it worked.
Well, I'm glad they really played up that part of his character about him giving up when the things get tough, because he stays in the movie for so long.
All right. The main group in the ballroom, now the captain's like, hey, we should all stay in here because everything will seal off, and this is a big air bubble that's keeping the ship afloat. Whereas Dreyfuss is like, no, I'm an architect. I don't think this thing was built to like, stay upside down.
I mean, sure, I build normal buildings, but like, I don't think boats are supposed to be upside down, guys.
But it's actually Josh Lucas is like, no, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to find a way up. But also Kurt Russell's like, I want to find my daughter. I want to go there. And then he like just bribes Freddie Rodriguez, like, hey, you know the layout of the ship. I'll triple your salary. Which again,
he says double, and then Freddie Rodriguez is like 3.
But again, that made me still think he owned the ship, because I thought because I didn't read that as just I'll just pay you the amount that's worth. I thought that was no, I will literally put it on the payroll. I will triple your salary. But
yeah,
whatever.
again, I'm sure there's something somewhere along the lines where it's like, oh, okay, he's rich in general or whatever. But everything in the movie was saying either he owned the boat or that he was a protective dad. The rich aspect of it was folded into the idea that he owns the boat. It doesn't feel like, oh, he was the former mayor of New York and therefore he's a billionaire. Like it doesn't track that way.
But he's definitely rich though. Like he is absolutely,
he is.
Everything tells you he is rich throughout the entire movie. So
it just feels independent of all the other things that we get. It's like, oh yeah, he's a hardworking dad and he has all this stuff and all that. Then we pause, we take a long break, paragraph, and also he's rich. Like it has nothing to do with the other stuff.
Yeah, so the kid was under the piano when it flipped upside. Like he went under there to hide, and so now he's actually up high, like on the underneath of the piano. So they make him jump out of the curtain that they hold out as whatever. So it's a little moment.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's the sort of thing that back in the 70s movie they would have had a full like 3 minutes to be like, okay, let's figure this out, let's do whatever. This one, 20 seconds tops.
So it's like, okay, we're going in this little group. Andrew Brower doesn't approve, but honestly, that's kind of the end of their stuff, except for later on when we see like, yeah, this place floods and they like him and Fergie realize they're going to die, so they just sort of hug like, oh, we're about to die. That's it.
Yeah. From what I read, and I might be misinterpreting this, I think that part of the 20 minutes of cutscenes was apparently saying that there was some level of a relationship between Fergie and Andre Brower.
Ah.
So that was kind of a end of that. But I agree. I think it works here of just the, two people sharing their last moments, not wanting to be alone. Like, that's all you need.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. So, yeah, they go through the kitchen. There's a lot of burned bodies. That was kind of a thing in the original. I remember that being kind of one of the more, like, haunting visuals of the original, was when they had to go past a bunch of burned bodies. We kind of talked about the elevator sequence a bit and them, like, making a little bridge and all that, and that's a whole part of it. They get to the other characters in the nightclub area very quickly after that, and that's kind of like where everyone's together, and it's like, okay, where are we going to go? How are we going to get there? I guess the next big set piece really is when they get basically into the foyer area where all the elevators and stuff are, and it's like, okay, we have to get across to the other side. The water's in the middle, like rising, but luckily we've got this sort of like tipped over elevator with like a beam kind of like getting across to the other side. So the characters start making their way over. And there's a big thing here where Kevin Dillon, this is where he's getting drunker and he's like insulting them, and Kurt Russell wants to punch him, but then like, you know what, on you go. And he gets the funny death. It's like, he's an asshole. We're going to see him get crushed by a big like piece of equipment that falls from the floor above.
It's like an engine block or something, just fully falls through the roof and just crushes them.
And he gets flattened, and it leads to this thing where the only people who haven't made it across to the other side are Josh Lucas, Emmy Rossum, and Kurt Russell. And Josh Lucas. Did I say them all? I think I said them all. All three of them. Right, and it's like
both Josh Lucases are stuck on the one side.
Yeah, so they have to get across, and they do a whole heroic thing with Josh Lucas here, where he like grabs a fire hose and he dives out of the water that's on fire, but he quickly goes under the water, so he gets across to the other side, and he makes like a zip line with the fire hose for them. They try and do a little thing here where it feels like Kurt Russell and his daughter are having a disagreement. And he's not going to like, no, we have to find another way. We're not going to cross that way. And he walks out of frame and she's like, oh, please, Dad, don't make me go without you. And she's like taking her belt off to use that as like the hook, if you will. And then he comes back into frame and he's got like a metal like bar or something. It's like in a shape of a U. And he's like, hey, tool for a piggyback. And I'm like, so they tried to do a little thing where she was sad because she thought that her dad was abandoning her. But then he came in and was like, no, I'm agreeing to go this way. I was just getting a better tool for the job. So, I don't know. It felt a little bit lukewarm to me. They were trying for a moment and it didn't quite land.
Strangely enough, I'm going to give this one just a little bit more credit than you. I agree. I don't think the moment landed, but you're forgetting to add on the part that this is where she reveals the proposal. And this is the thing where it's like, okay, he doesn't approve to the point of him storming off and leaving. And that's I think what we were trying to get across here.
There's like an underline of like, oh, you want to go across there because your boyfriend's over there rather than staying with me, your father. Yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of baked into it. That's true.
And I think that's what the moment's supposed to be going for. But yeah, it's the thing where she's kind of just standing there. Like you say she takes off her belt or whatever and gets ready to do that. But there's a good like 5-10 seconds of her just standing there just going, Daddy. And I'm like, all right, you're like in your 20s. Let's try to act like it here a little bit.
Yeah. So you got that, and then the other big set pieces are crawling through some vents, which Elena hates because she's claustrophobic. She has to be really tucked into it, and there's a lot of squeezing, and they get stuck for a while in there, and they have to sort of get the kid to use his little hands to try and unscrew the vent on the other side, otherwise they're going to drown. So that's like an extended, like 5-10 minute like set piece, is them crawling through these vents. Yeah. And that part sticks out to me because I think this is the pivot point for me, where everything after that I was really bored by. Like I was like, all the crossing of the main area, I was like, oh, there's some fun, like, you know, big stuff happening here. But inherently the locations in the ship, the closer they're getting to the bottom of the ship by going up, the less visually interesting everything is.
No, you're right. I think that it's a problem of obviously the character stuff, as we said, but also of tension. Also of the idea of constantly escalating the tension of this stuff. One of the next sequences we get after the vent stuff is they essentially have to intentionally flood this tank that they're in order to open up these other vents that they can go through. And I get on paper why that feels more tense, because you are like intentionally going to be drowning yourself for a while here. But the way that they shot the vent scene and like had this super close up on like the kid's hand trying to undo the screws, it just felt like that was the peak. Like there was nothing else that was more tense than that moment throughout the rest.
Yeah, it was more claustrophobic, and ultimately all of this stuff with the flooding of these rooms to open these pressure doors, it's a lot of just swimming, basically. And eventually Elena like hits her head, and she like ends up, you know, they have the whole, they try and give her mouth to mouth, she doesn't wake up, and they're all sad about it. And that's where I was like, okay, so she died without ever knowing her like friend, her kind of boyfriend died. I don't know, that was such a weird detail to me. So yeah, and then from that point, it kind of becomes about, okay, we have to get to where the propellers are, because we can maybe get through those. That's how we could get out to the outside, because those openings there.
That was the plan the whole time. That was what Josh Lucas was like, this is where we're heading to, this is what we're doing. But at this point in there, they're like, okay, let's head there. It should be super quick. It's right down this hall. And then they find out that this hall, because of the way the ship is tilted, is underwater. And there's nothing they can do.
It's too far, which eventually just gets solved because the ship, like another part of the ship floods and then tilts back the other way. And it's like, oh, lovely, we can go through this way now. But this is actually the part, I think, where the kid just disappears and the mum has to go looking for him. So we actually get two problems happening at the same time, where somehow this kid, when we finally find him, is behind like a cage door, and the mum even says, how did you get in there? And he just says, I don't know, but the water's getting really high. And it's almost like they're just telling the audience, don't worry about it. How did you get trapped? How did you get trapped in a place you can't get out of? Who can say?
Here's the thing though, and this is absolutely what they should have done here, because this sequence has no sense of geography. Like you don't know where they are anymore. You have no idea like what direction they headed in. All you know is that they're underwater and there's a grate right here. And then they show the sequence of Josh Lucas going underwater, trying to get through. He's having problems doing so, whatever. Just have the kid tell the mom, like, there was a door that's down there I went through, and then the water came up real quick or something. So that way we know what Josh Lucas has to do.
Yeah.
We know what the goal of the sequence is. But because we don't know that, all of this is just a blur of swimming and randomly like pressing buttons and trying to pull on latches and such.
Yeah, and while that's going on, which obviously eventually saves the kid, but that's all playing out at the same time as the other characters are trying to solve the dilemma of, oh, the propellers are still on, we can't just go up there. And I think it's the boyfriend who says, why don't we just throw some stuff up there, jam it all up, and it'll stop working. And he's like, well, that is an okay plan in theory, but it's blowing the wrong way. Like, because of the direction it's spinning, everything's going to be blown in the other direction. So
I thought for sure this was where Richard Dreyfuss dies. I thought we just have like a senseless death right on the cusp of it, because he goes up and he opens up the propeller hatch.
Yeah.
But because it's not suction, it's like blowing air in, it immediately, as soon as he unlatches it, this giant metal door whips back and hits him in the face. And I was like, he's dead. This is his comeuppance for killing Valentine. He was right on the cusp for it, and then it's gone.
Yeah, no, he's fine. He's all shaken up, obviously. He's got maybe a bit of a bruise now, but he's fine. So the whole thing is like, oh, we have to get to the controls for the propellers down here in the engine area and, like, you know, flip them off. Or I think eventually ends up being just changing them so they're blowing the other way. so that the other plan works. But I don't think that was the plan initially. The initial plan was just turn them off. But
yeah, the initial plan was to do it, and without spoiling who goes down there, they get down there and they see the emergency stop button is like broken, disconnected, and they're like, well, I can't go back for another breath and I can't do anything else, so he just reverses them instead.
Yeah. So basically it's going to be the boyfriend. The argument is that he's younger, he's fitter, he's got a better chance of succeeding getting to the buttons, but they kind of know it's a one-way trip. Like, there's almost no way whoever goes is getting back. But Kurt Russell ultimately, I mean, let's face it, he pulls the Bruce Willis in Armageddon, like, no, you're going back, son, take care of my daughter, I'm going to go and save the world, or save the ship.
He does. However, I as much as I was critiquing the characterization, the one thing I said is this fully completes an arc. The father-daughter, new boyfriend thing, all that completes an arc. What I like about how this one does it, specifically, is that it starts with Kurt Russell. It says, I'm the one, Kurt Russell's going to be the one that swims down to do it. And then the boyfriend volunteers. And so now that we've had that switch, now that it's gone from him to the boyfriend, and the father agrees, he's like, yeah, he has a better shot of it. And so they're doing a thing where he's like, hey, honey, before I go, I need you to tell me you love me. And then they look over and Kurt Russell's already started swimming. And I'm like, all right, that's good. That actually caught me off guard in terms of I thought for sure we were actually going to kill the boyfriend. Because let's face it, the only way these plots are ever resolved is either the boyfriend dies or the father dies. And usually it's the father. But I thought they were going to go the other way this time.
Yeah, but obviously the father's Kurt Russell and the boyfriend's generic mid-2000s dude. So I was kind of rooting for the boyfriend to die more so, but, you know,
yeah,
I was expecting it.
That was the other bit. They had a weird bit when they were swimming through, was I think the sequence where Elena gets killed, where the boyfriend takes the kid and is like, hey, let me carry him through. I swam in high school. I can get him through, no problem. Just helping him along. And they get through, like, he doesn't have any problems getting through. That was fine. It all worked. But then we get this weird walkaway scene where he's like, yeah, I didn't actually swim in high school. I was just telling her that to, like, make her feel better. I'm like, but you made it through. Like, I don't, like, there was no issue with you not making it or making it. What's the problem here?
Yeah, it was really just to give Maggie, like, a rest because she'd been carrying the kid or whatever the whole time. So it's like, hey, like, I'll take the burden for a minute, give you a break, but...
I going into that scene, I thought for sure we were splitting the kid up from the mom to kill the mom. Like, that seemed obvious.
Yeah, actually, one of the problems I was having a little bit in the vent sequence is that I was having a hard time because of, like, the way it was shot. Obviously, they look nothing alike typically, but sometimes it was hard to tell if I was looking at Maggie or Elena, depending on because when we're in the vent, it's all these, like, you know, really dark sequences and it's close-ups, and it was only because of, like, how scared Elena was I could tell it was her, because otherwise it just, you couldn't tell. Because they were both in the middle of the pack. So
I agree. Look, I don't think this is true for every cast. I don't think you always need to do this, but, you know, we do comics, and there is an issue of, like, if you have too many people that are all out of their costumes or whatever, just normal people with black hair and white skin, like, sometimes they blend together. Sometimes it's hard to tell who it is. We have a lot of mid-20 female brunettes in this movie.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a little hard to tell the difference.
Yeah. Now, again, it's obviously in a well-lit room, easy peasy, but, like, this is, like, you know, harsher conditions intentionally and it's overly dramatized. So
especially once people, like, start getting, like, their clothes drenched and all their hair is, like, kind of looking the same.
So yeah, I mean, the ending is once they realize that Kurt Russell's flipped the switch, it's like, oh, give me that tank of whatever's in here and I'll throw that in there. And it ends up being, like, a thing where the tank gets stuck in the door because it's too wide. So we get this whole thing where Josh Lucas has to go up to it and kind of try and kick it in and, like, you know, shove it in so it'll blow up the propeller. This is the part that feels the most 2006. Is having to blow up the propellers so bit more bombastic than anything in the original movie, you know?
And I love it because he's like, oh, I can't do it. It's not budget, whatever. And so they do this whole sequence where, like, it seems like he's coming to terms. He's saying, like, I'm going to have to, like, get in close to move it and I won't be able to get away from the blast. And they do this all without saying it. But, like, what ends up happening is that, yes, he gets in close, but eventually he just gets sucked, like, into the doorway himself. The tank goes, he kicks it in, and then he just drops to safety. And it's like, It doesn't seem like you were as close as you physically could have been, and yet you still managed to get to safety. I don't understand what the risk here was.
It felt like he potentially his sacrifice moment, and then he just was fine. Yeah. So, also, something that I've not actually mentioned yet, but obviously it comes into play here, is that as soon as the boat capsized, I noticed a couple of life rafts just sort of floating next to the boat, which I guess is maybe an intentional automatic thing where it like just fires out some like inflatable rafts. But I noticed it the first time, and I'm like, that's a cool little detail. Like one of the life rafts is just kind of inflated and is just sort of hanging out. But then every time we got an exterior shot, I kept seeing it, and I'm like, don't tell me they're going to use that exact raft at the end. Like that's going to be this has been Chekhov's raft the entire time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Did you not see it? It's the USS Chekhov. Did you not see that part?
But sure enough, they're going to jump out of the boat. It's about to sink, so they go jumping into the water. They get to the raft, paddle away, fire off a flare, and apparently the boats and helicopters that were nearby were already on their way because they respond to this flare immediately.
I'm sure storyboarding wise it looked great. I hate the match cut shot they used of the light of the flare going into the light of the helicopter. I don't know why, but just viscerally, I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've seen. Like, all of a sudden, you are in the middle of cold, still waters, but two helicopters, in fact, just sneak up on you, and you don't even know they're there.
I mean, maybe if the ship was still, because the ship does a lot of like little explosions as it's going down, which I did question, like, what's left on the ship to explode at this point, to be honest. But it's got all these little explosions happening. Maybe that could have disguised the noise, but that had already went down by this, because they wanted to do the whole Titanic thing of them watching the ship go underwater and being completely gone. So it's gone. It's quiet, and then somehow the propellers of two helicopters don't like. It's like a T-Rex in Jurassic Park. Sometimes it causes little tremors, but sometimes he sneaks around the corner like a little ninja.
Never know. Also, I know that we were approaching the end of the movie. I know that they needed to get away. Once the ship actually started like tilting towards them as they were in the raft, I'm like, that makes sense as to why you need to swim away quickly. But I have absolutely no explanation as to why did they feel the need to jump off the ship at such a high height? Like, it was going down. Wait until you're like 10 feet away, unless we're concerned about like suction or something. But even then,
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
And the other part of it was this entire movie, obviously, the water was chasing them. It was sneaking up on them. It was coming up the hallways. It was doing whatever. But then when they finally hit that final bit and they jump out and they show that, they're like 40 feet above the water. They are significantly higher above the water level to the point where the jump feels like it is a fall. So how was the water sneaking up at them at that point?
I mean, they did climb up to that torpedo bay a little. What I say, torpedo? Not torpedoes. It's not a warship.
The propeller bay.
The propeller ship. Yeah. So like, they did climb up to that a bit. So I guess it explains some of the height. But I mean, yeah, they're playing fast and loose with it. I'm not like going to defend it.
They climbed up a little bit. However, remember that the reason that he was having to move so quick with the tank was because water started exploding into the room.
That's also true. That is also true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the last half hour, 40 minutes, are so just kind of samey and nothing interesting really propels it, no pun intended, that it just kind of feels like, I don't know, I'd completely lost interest. So by the time we got to the ending where it's like some of the characters survived, the fact that 2 or 3 of them feel like the wrong characters that survived is another problem, I guess. But certainly, I think it's wild that Dreyfuss survived. I really did not expect him to make it out, but...
It's strange to me because in the context of the movie, I agree. I think he should have died from his actions, but it's also this weird thing where from a meta standpoint, for whatever reason, despite the fact that essentially in this movie he is asexual, they made him gay, which if they were to kill off the gay character would also feel weird. But like,
sure. Do you know the thing is though, is by the time we got to that last half hour, I forgot he was gay because it was like they show him with an earring, a little stud in his ear at the start, and he mentions like he's missing him. That I want him to call me back, and then for the rest of the movie, it's irrelevant. It does not come up, which is fine because I don't know why it would come up necessarily, but Yeah, I wasn't even thinking, but you're right. Maybe they thought, oh, we can't kill the gay, even though we gave him all these reasons why he maybe should want to sacrifice himself out of guilt eventually. But
I mean, there's literally no character they could make gay and keep alive outside of him. Like, obviously, we need to have Kirk Russell be the like old-timey conservative dad who does all this stuff, so he clearly wouldn't be gay. And then we can't have the boyfriend be gay because that would just raise all these issues. And then all the stuff to Josh Lucas, and he needs to be into the mother for the child subplot that ultimately never shows up. So
I was going to say, I don't know if he needs to be because it never really happens, but in theory, it's supposed to be a romantic
in a better
thing.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, very, very strange. But there you go. All right, David, what are you rating Poseidon out of 10?
It's weird. Every time you say Poseidon, I feel like I'm expecting adventure. Like, I know that's not the name of the movie, but I'm expecting it.
When they eventually remake the Tower in Inferno, and it'll just be Inferno, it'll be like, whoa, what's going on?
No, hold on.
Not that they'll ever do that because of 9/11, honestly, but still.
Oh, no, yeah. I don't know. It's not good. I'm not getting up to a 7, that much is for sure, but I'm just wondering how far down do I take it. I really was... Like I said, you started off this one with saying how like negative I sounded and stuff like that. And I admit I do sound very negative, but it's only because of the lost potential. It's only because I know they could have done better.
That sounds like you're going to go far too high based on everything you said, because you did this with Day After Tomorrow, where you turned around and said like 7.5, and I damn near shat myself. Like,
the difference between this and Day After Tomorrow is I don't even think like the set pieces were fun for me. I think that like there was the vent sequence I think was really solid, and then the tipping of the boat. Yeah. But beyond that, like that's not enough to hold a movie. Yeah,
this isn't even sniffing a 7. I don't even know why you'd bring a 7 up, but like, where are you landing?
That's my absolute cap. 5.5. I don't think. Here's the thing. I don't hate this one anywhere near as much as I hated Armageddon. I think that this one. Part of me wants to say it's under the 5, but a lot of me recognizes like it still has some stuff to it that does work in like aspects of it. I just need to drop from my mind the fact that the 70s one even existed, because if I do that, this immediately is like it's not awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me it's probably just like a straight 5. I could be talked down at like a 4.5, but I think it's just a 5. I think it's just straight in the middle. I think it's really, really middling and mediocre. There's a few sequences I enjoy. There's some silliness that I can maybe kind of have some fun with how 2006 it is. But the back like 40 minutes is so goddamn boring. I did not care about anything that was going on. So 5 is kind of like the tippy top here for me in this one. So 5 out of 10.
I mean, I said this on a recent review. I can't remember specifically which one, but I rented this off YouTube, and it has the little attention spikes. And the moment the ship goes down, it may as well flatline, save for a little bit whenever there's a set piece. Just a tiny little like boop, like everyone loses interest.
Who are these people that just stop the movie after the big set piece?
I don't know.
Like, I have to imagine this is people who have seen it already and are just wanting to watch certain scenes again, and that's what gives these scenes big spikes, because I can't imagine who's for the first time just sort of going through it in the timeline and going, oh, this bit looks interesting.
Probably, but I mean, you still have to pay $3.99 to rent it, so I don't know who's doing that for a $3.99 rental.
Well, it's probably not people who have rented it, it's probably people who have bought it, because it'll be the same data, presumably.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, fair enough. I'm so much in the mindset of I'm never going to buy any of these movies. I have no idea why anybody would.
I don't know. Nostalgia. Someone was like 8 when they watched this for the first time, and it stuck with them. I don't know. It's the only thing I can think of.
I've only bought one movie out of both shows that I've done with you. I've only bought one movie, and that was out of necessity to get the 4K edition of Abyss.
Money well spent.
Yeah.
Money well spent. All right. Well, that is that. I guess. Does it make the cut?
It doesn't make the cut.
No. No. No, it just doesn't.
No. I don't think it's cut your losses, but it's definitely not making the cut.
It's just a no. It's just a simple no. And we can leave it there. All right. Well, next time we have one more disaster movie before we're wrapping up this season. So the finale of the season next week is going to be the winner of a Patreon vote, and that winner was Geostorm. So we're getting into absurd territory. I think this one takes place on a space station, if I remember correctly, as like Earth's weather is going absolute nuts. I think so. So
no, it's in a trailer thumbnail on IMDb, so yeah. I guess you're right.
So yeah, Gerard Butler. We started this season with Sean Connery. We're ending with another Scotsman. Although I don't know if he's keeping his Scottish accent in this. He might be playing just an American or something.
I don't know. Beats me. I mean, we could have watched Greenland, but decided not to go down that road. Isn't he in that? Is that not Gerard Butler?
It is, but the reason why I decided not to go down that road is because the sequel's out right now, and I didn't want to have to like go do the sequel as well. No,
I'm just saying, I know he has his accent in that. That's the thing that like I always pick up from whenever I'm listening to those trailers. Yeah, he's got it. At least I believe he does. Maybe it's not his normal accent, but he has an accent.
I mean, it may just be like he's not good at hiding his accent, so it's slipping through. I don't know.
Yeah.
But regardless, Geostorm's what we're wrapping up disaster season with. So that is what we can do. And then after that, we're doing a big movie season of 2025, which is just a bunch of acclaimed 2025 movies that we believe we should get to. And that'll be a nice big mega season after disaster. So if you're done with these silly schlocky blockbusters, we're getting into some serious business in the following season. So hopefully you join us for that.
If you want more of it, we've done like 6 different disaster seasons so far, so check out any of those. We
have several. The disaster movie playlist is building on YouTube for sure. So go check out that. But yes, you can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube membership. That gets you access to the ratings rundown segments we do for each episode. But more importantly, you get access to Extra Reels, which is a show we do once a month where we review some of the worst movies ever made. It's absolute misery, sometimes funny, but mostly misery. If that sounds like a good time, you can go check out that and help keep all the content coming. But plus you get the show a little bit early as well, if that's something that matters to you. So go check out that. Thanks to everyone who already supports the show. And of course that gets you bonuses for all the other shows we do as well. The Sci-Fi Movie Podcast, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. So go and have a look-see. And if you haven't checked out the Atomic Cinema Experiment and you want more of me and David talking about movies, there's a whole other show where we do that every week. So go check it out. Anyway, that's us. That is everything. We'll see you next time for Geostorm. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always good to have diplomatic immunity.